Welcome to Storytime with Lori, where we talk about real life, real leadership, and the moments that shape who we are becoming. This isn't about highlight reels or titles. It's about relationships, the risks, and the people who change the world, often quietly. Today's guest is someone who embodies that kind of leadership. Some people lead with volume. Some people lead with force. Some lead with presence. Jessica Reece is one of those people. She's a mother of 9, a channel powerhouse, a strategic mind with gentle strength, and someone who proves softness is not a weakness, it's a form of power. This conversation explores authenticity as leadership, softness as strategy, and what it really looks like to hold a full life without performing perfection. If you've ever wondered whether you can lead without hardening, this episode answers that question. Jessica, I'm so glad you're here today.
Lori, thank you. It's an honor to be here and be part of what you're starting and kicking off here in 2026. And it's a pleasure to be talking to you today.
Oh, thank you for joining. This world needs to hear who you are, celebrate your successes, because you really are such a gem and you are so appreciated in this channel organization. I want to be able to showcase your story and highlight who you are as an individual. So thank you for being here today. I want to start about talking really about your leadership journey, because when you think about who you are professionally and personally, you automatically, when people start to hear about your titles, a mother of 9, you're a channel leader, a strategic partner, they start to form a picture pretty quickly. But when you start to think about your leadership journey, how do you feel like, and where it really started to begin for you?
In terms of a leadership journey, I guess I don't ever remember a time in my life where I didn't feel or want to be a leader. I mean, back elementary school play yard, right? Let's go way back. There was always this desire to step up, coordinate, put all the pieces together. And I think that's just something that's innately always been there. I'm a middle child too, so there's probably a little bit that has to go into the whole identity that I've formed as I've, continued into adult life. But even in my first few jobs, not careers, but jobs as a young early teen and then into my 20s, I always had this desire to be the leader in those organizations as well. And I would get so committed to whatever role I was in, wherever I was working. My first job was at a dog kennel. And I was convinced as a 14-year-old, I was going to grow up and own my own dog kennel. And that was going to be my life, right? So I really commit to what I'm doing too. So, yeah.
There's a lot of heart and belief behind that. How do you feel that translates today in what you're doing in the channel?
I think the concepts behind leadership never change, right? They evolve to meet whatever it is you're doing, the capacity of leadership role that you're put into. But really, when we think about it, leadership is never a title. It's a position that you take within the role you're given. And so it's continually morphed over the years. I've been a people leader for about a decade or so. But even before that, I always wanted to be a leader of people. That doesn't mean that, again, you're, in charge and you can tell people what to do. That in and of itself isn't even a leader. Like if that's what you're doing, reconsider. But it's more about the helpfulness and the this desire for everyone to succeed. That really is at the core. So as that's morphed over the years into the roles that I've taken on, I've only been able to refine that skill set. If I think back to the leader that I was when I was in my early teens, that is not the leader I am today. Part of that is finding other people that you look up to, that you believe are leaders, not just managers or bosses, and really pay attention to what they're intentionally doing. And then you either like it or you don't like it. It either fits your persona or it doesn't. But even the ones that you're like, I'm going to pass on that, it's still helping cultivate and helping you form and become exactly who you're trying to be.
Do you feel that there is any sort of pressure to harden or like toughen up your armor, especially as women, and it is male dominated, and women are more in touch with their emotions. You know, we feel more, we are more expressive. So when we are surrounded by men, it's kind of natural to harden in certain ways. As you've stepped up in your career, have you felt pressure to harden in any sort of ways? And if so, how have you naturally softened that? And how have you leaned into who you are as a natural person to be Jessica Reece?
Absolutely, I have. And unfortunately, it was very early in my cybersecurity career. Um, I it was a new field for me, and so I was looking for advice and suggestions on how to be successful doing it. And I definitely asked the wrong person. I know that now, but I asked the wrong person and they said, you can't be anything of who you are. Like, you need to completely reinvent yourself. You need to stop doing everything you love, everything that is really important to you, and you need to be this person over here. And they created a persona for me, and it was a masculine persona, absolutely 100%. And I spent years trying to be that person because I wanted to be good for my role. I wanted to be good for my company and the people that I was trying to work with. Right? There was that desire, but I was doing it in the wrong direction. As soon as I was able to realize that and see that, I feel like I've actually become myself doing the roles and having the career that I want to have. It was absolutely instrumental for me to reach that point because I truly was trying to be something I wasn't. And that's the persona that I think is expected in a lot of ways, just corporately across the board. However, I think there's a place for a little bit of goofy playfulness and you know, uh, a smile every once in a while. So
Oh, we have to have some fun at work. You
that's
have
right.
to. We're gonna be here for a while, and it's work. It's not gonna be fun all the time. It's work, right?
Yeah.
But if we're not living a little bit in there, it is gonna be like prison. I want to take a step back and dig into some of those layers. Were you seeking out that feedback from that leader where you're like, hey, how do I step into something? Or were they very direct with you and said, hey, Jessica, in order for you to get to this layer, you need to become this, and here's exactly what to do? How did that come to you?
Probably the latter. I think when I got into cybersecurity, I started as a chatbot, right? Like before AI was answering all the chats, I was a chatbot. And I really wanted to make an impression very quickly in the industry. And the person came to me and said, look, if that's really what you're trying to do, this is what you need to change. I don't think back then I understood what asking for suggestions or even finding a mentor or someone to really give you guidance was. So I didn't even know that was out there for me to take advantage of. So
When you finally said, all right, Jess, like, I'm not very comfortable leading this fake Jessica,
yeah,
how long did that take you to say, I'm not that? And when you realized authenticity is who I am, and this is my living proof of my powers right now, how did you remove those shackles? And as you started to step into that and realizing this is my power and I'm gonna lead here, how did you step into that? And like, can you walk us through some of that? Because I know a lot of women face this and they're living in this and they're like, okay, I relate to that. How do I get out of this? And what are some of those steps to do that?
I think it kind of connected for me at
Mm-hmm.
this culmination of a couple different things. One, I was taking on a new role.
Mm-hmm.
Two, we were in amidst COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so being who you were and having your home kind of invade work was a thing for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think it offered the opportunity to really be real, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, sorry, I'm on camera. I've got people behind me, or I'm not going to be on camera, right? Like that became something that was acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Before that, I think we really had a sanitized version of this is
Yes.
my work person versus this
Mm-hmm.
is who I am as a person. And in addition to that, it was actually a very escalated call that I was on. And one of the leaders had his daughter on his lap.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just sitting there. He was just holding her. And we're talking like high level, save relationship
Mm-hmm.
conversations. And she started talking. And
Mm-hmm.
he, to everyone, said, just wait a minute. Talks to her. I want you to be with me here. But if you're going to be with me, you have to be quiet. Can you be quiet? And we can do this together. And she was like, yeah. And he just went right back on talking. And
Yeah.
it really was impactful for me in so many different ways. Now, I don't have a
Mm-hmm.
lap full of kids when I'm on calls. However, I looked at the
Mm-hmm.
fact that as an executive, he was
Mm-hmm.
comfortable truly being who he was.
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world was I trying to hide who
Yes.
I am? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really where the change
Mm-hmm.
started. It has been
Mm-hmm.
so freeing,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely freeing. I also think I'm
Mm-hmm.
to a point, I said it's a culmination of multiple things. I also think I'm to the point in being an adult where I'm me and that's it.
Yes.
I don't have time to do anything else. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to continue the next few decades of my life trying to be
Mm-hmm.
something I'm not. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of helps too. I think you get to an age and you lose a little bit of the filter and you lose a little bit of the, oh, you don't like me? I'm really sorry. Um,
Yes. Yeah. I had a lot of that aha. I think when you get 40, I always say I'm 37-ish. And it's kind of the same thing at COVID. I feel COVID was a groundbreaking moment for a lot of people. It was, I remember one of my partners, a high executive. I had like a 6 a.m. meeting, and he's like, "Why aren't you on camera?" And I'm like, "Dean, I don't have any makeup on, and I had a hoodie on." And he goes, "You're always on camera." And I'm like, "I don't have any makeup on." And he goes, "You still have your same brain." And I'm like, "You're right." And then I went on
oh,
camera, and he's like, "It doesn't matter." And he's like, I'm in my pajamas still too. And I'm like, "Okay, well, here we go." And it is, and it softened me as well at the same time of like, and it made everybody so real. And I loved
right.
that about COVID because here we are leading and just being all these like fake people. And I like that about COVID. And here we are in all this advancement with AI, and we're all about convenience now. And now we don't know what's real and what isn't. And it comes back to this authenticity. And we have to be real. We have to stay connected. And I think going back to like who you are and how you show up, and I think that's what makes leaders so dynamic now, is if we are not communicating, especially now that we are in a global world, we have younger buyers, we have older buyers, we have different dynamics, we've got, a world of color. If we are not one on one, if we are not connecting with who we're with, we're not gonna be able to win together. And so it's going back to staying present and staying connected. And that's where it is. So if
That's
we
right.
are running hard, if we are not talking right, if we're not connecting, and if we're trying to be something that we aren't inside, it doesn't feel good. Like we're not, like you're not being Jessica Reece when you're over here, and it doesn't work. And so it goes back to just living authentically, and that's when we vibe at our highest. If we're not staying true to what we are and our core belief, we're not going to be there. You're leading in a different form. And I think that's what all leaders need to think about right now. And if you don't build that culture based on connection and your people skills, we're not going to be there. I remember one of our first conversations with you, and it always sticks out to me, is you're like, I have to delight my internal customers, everybody. It's all about delight. And if you are not delighted, you're not going to stay. And it
Right.
is. And it all goes back to that connection. I want to lean into with leaders, especially the executives, they have such big egos, dominance. And then they think once they're at the top, nothing's, here I am. How do we start to shift some of that culture? How do we shift of that mindset? Because we're not there anymore. We have to shift that. When you're in these boards, in these boardrooms, when you're in these sessions, how do you start to shift some of that mindset? How do you almost kind of say, look at what I'm doing, look at some of the success that I'm doing? How do you take a footprint of what you're doing and shift some of that ego and some of that pride with some of those egos that you're working with?
First, I think some people you're not going to be able to affect, and we just have to
Mm-hmm.
accept that. But once we know
Mm-hmm.
that, then you understand the dynamic of the relationship and you can work with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second, uh, it's an attitude of the whole ecosystem, right? And I think again, it's a mindset that each person individually has to take on. But when the people around you, not even just your team or your organization that you're part of, but the additional business units that you work in and amongst every day, if they are not thriving in what they're doing with you, um, you can tell immediately that there's something wrong, and it always starts at the top.
Mm-hmm.
So I I tell people all the time, I have a ton of opinions. You just got to be willing to listen, and
Mm-hmm.
I will share, share, share. And
Yes.
it's not because I want people to do things the way I do, but ever since I've been able to come into this is who I am,
Mm-hmm.
conversations I have with people, they say, wow, that's really impactful for me. Wow, I never thought of it
Yes.
like that. These are great conversations, and I don't want to, there's zero reason why I can't share that information with other people. So I
Mm-hmm.
will often suggest things that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
You never want to, in any conversation, whether this scenario or any, if you go into a conversation and someone feels like you're judging what they're doing, they
Mm-hmm.
immediately are going to shut down. Not for any other reason,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like a defense mechanism.
Mm,
But if you go into the
absolutely.
conversation and say, hey, I have been thinking about this lately and I've tried this and it really worked good. It's
Mm-hmm.
still like a segue, but you're not
Yes.
directly addressing them. You leave it up to the
Mm-hmm.
listener to connect the dots in their own head and go, this is really interesting. How do I apply that to my life, my scenario, this specific situation? And
Mm-hmm.
self awareness is golden. Some people have it, some people
Mm-hmm.
don't. A lot of people do, though, at least at some level. So we can
Mm-hmm.
assume that there's a level of self awareness amongst all the people that we're talking to, that they're going to
Mm-hmm.
be doing maybe the same thing of learning from people, taking bits and pieces that they like. So I just want to leave breadcrumbs out for everybody, right? I'll
Yes.
leave you a breadcrumb. If you pick it up, amazing. Let's talk about it. If you don't, that's okay too, because you don't have to,
Mm-hmm.
but it's there if you want it.
Mm-hmm. How do you encourage people who are a little bit more shy, a little bit more timid of either raising their hand, either vocalizing, hey, I've got a great idea, especially females who are outnumbered, who there may be one female to 25 men in a room. How
Yeah.
do you encourage that, or sometimes a female will be like, hey, I got a great idea, they share it, and then a male may override that and be like, hey, I got a great idea, and they snake that. How do you encourage somebody to, number one, raise their hand and share that, and then second, if somebody else takes that idea and says it's mine, what is your way of counterbalancing that and say, hey, excuse me, no, that was mine. What would your response be? What is your advice on those two scenarios?
I think it's really important to be able to speak up or feel that you have a voice. If you are in a
Absolutely.
situation where you are consistently quieted, is that the word? Quieted or shut down, first, I would say maybe you're in the
Mm-hmm.
wrong situation, right? Evaluate that
Mm-hmm.
first. If it's
Mm-hmm.
just you're shy and you don't want to speak up or there's nervousness around speaking up, I will share a very painful story. Um, I have always thought about like meeting people. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
hard thing for me to do. As a teenager, I was terrified to even talk to people on the phone. Like it terrified me to my core. And I was at an event a while back, and they have those, sign up for a meeting with the professional that'll talk to you about this or that. So I was meeting with someone about something completely unrelated, but I had a question. We talked through it and it was over, but I still had like 20 minutes. She was like, do you want to talk about anything else? And I'm like, gosh, like, how do I become better at like talking to people and learning about people, small talk, if you will? And she goes, well, what do you
Mm-hmm.
have against small talk? Well, I have nothing against it. And she said, well, clearly you do. What do you have
Mm-hmm.
against small talk that's keeping you from feeling like it's something you can do? Well, I
Mm-hmm.
don't, I mean, that was a challenge, right? That was a challenge to me. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And she goes, you really just need to step outside yourself. Ugh, what?
Yes.
Like I didn't think of myself in that way at all. But she said some really
Mm-hmm.
strongly worded things to me that made me take a step back and realize that I was so worried about how I was being perceived, if I would say the right
Mm-hmm.
things, if I would accidentally
Mm-hmm.
snort when I laughed. I don't know. You fill in the blank. I was so
Everything.
exactly. I was so involved in my head thinking about those silly things that I wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
as much as I wanted to be engaged, I was not engaged in the right way. And I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about me, and I was not thinking about them or the partnership or
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity, right? As soon as she said that, for me, that was another light bulb moment where it's like, okay, I'm done thinking and wasting my brain cells on all of that. Done. And I was able to start thinking about my contributions for other people, raising my hand in a
Yes.
meeting and mentioning something. And it really helped me develop that confidence to say, it doesn't matter how it makes me feel to chime in or raise my hand or ask maybe a stupid question. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
do it because it's going to make everybody that's part of this conversation better or think about
Mm-hmm.
things differently. And I would say the scenario of hey, you're just a little bit too shy. It's not about you being shy. It's about what you're going to bring and what you're going to contribute to what everybody's working towards.
Mm-hmm.
That's part one.
I
Part
love.
two.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say part two. If you are speaking up and you're constantly just run over, right? Hey, here's my idea. And then without discussion, somebody else is jumping in. There is a polite way to redirect conversation and saying, that's a great thought. Can we just take 1 minute to discuss what I contributed? And then let's jump right into that. There's always an
Yes.
appropriate way to address every situation. And no matter what the situation is, stay calm headed. Don't take offense easy. They probably are not
Mm-hmm.
doing it to offend you. to railroad you, to do any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
It just jumped out, right? So don't take offense. Stay calm and level-headed, and assertively just say, it goes back to communication. Can we just redirect back for 1 minute and then we'll move on? And that's all you have to
Bravo.
say. And I don't think anyone is going to be like, well, no, we're not going to redirect here, right? It's it's a reasonable request, and everyone you're working with in your career is a professional. Redirect it. If it takes it a step
Bravo.
further and you do have
Bravo
issues
on
there,
that.
thanks. It goes back to the maybe you're in the wrong situation. Maybe you're within the wrong group.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. With that, I love how you stretched yourself in that moment. You know, you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. You're like, okay, I'm going to go put myself here. Somebody really stretched you
Yes.
and you did something about it. Some people are really afraid to do that, and you did it. And you are continuing to lean in on that. I think you took that, and a lot of people, a lot of their superpowers are also their kryptonite. I know for me, a lot of it is like connecting with people, but then it's like, okay, a lot of that, like I am definitely an empath, but I also know I need a lot of downtime with it. And I also have ADHD. And so it's trying to connecting my downtime and then also staying on track and like putting it all together all at the same time and then not losing myself in all of it. And it's trying to find balance, and it's trying to find keeping it all together. So, understanding your superpowers and how to balance it all, I want to ask you about some of your superpowers because I know that you are known for uplifting others. And I want to ask you like some of your superpowers and how do you balance some of what you have and leaning into that through leadership?
I think part of it, and I always tell people this, they're like, oh, thank you. This was great. And I'm like, what you need to understand is selfishly, I get so much out of talking to people and meeting with people that maybe they think they're leaving the conversation with the better half of the deal, but I definitely think I always am. Doesn't matter what the situation is, it's a learning, it's a learning process for me. And the way that our brains work, I can think about things for forever. But as soon as I'm having a conversation with someone about it, my brain
Mm-hmm.
is thinking about it differently. And their brain is thinking about it differently than if they were to have their own independent internal thought too. And so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of um, a lot of the conversations or a lot of the times where someone reaches out and says, "Hey, can we talk about this? Hey, can we brainstorm? I'm dealing with
Mm-hmm.
something. Can you walk me through it?" Every single one of
Mm-hmm.
those conversations is it just builds me up too, right? I don't walk away
Mm-hmm.
empty-handed. And
Mm-hmm.
I like to always be available, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is because I know that it can make an impact or not. Again, take it or leave
Mm-hmm.
it. But I'm going to walk
Mm-hmm.
away a better leader, a better listener, a better thinker because of every single interaction that I get to have. And
Mm-hmm.
when we think about as leaders, how do we continue to pour into ourselves so that we can pour into others? And it comes down to learning. So whether that
Mm-hmm.
is in conversations with people, events that you maybe
Mm-hmm.
facilitate or lead, or good podcasts or books that you take time and you set
Mm-hmm.
time aside to give yourself that as a gift. Um, all of
Yes.
that plays into our ability to continue to build on what we know and then give that
Mm-hmm.
out to those that are around us.
Mm-hmm. How do you not lose yourself as you pour so much into your family, into people? How do you not lose yourself in all of that?
That's a really good question. And it's about priorities. I think.
Mm-hmm.
During certain hours of the day, work is a priority because I
Mm-hmm.
am being given compensation, money, to do
Mm-hmm.
something on behalf of someone. So there's a priority of that.
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes to, well, what's next in my priority list? It is
Mm-hmm.
not, it's my kids or my family, taking care of
Mm-hmm.
things around the home. And then after all that's done, there's Jessica there at the bottom. However, some days it's I'm going to go get my nails done and go out to my favorite place to eat for dinner. And it's a few hours long. Other
Mm-hmm.
times it's I'm going to get up early this morning and I'm going to build myself my new Lego set, right? Because that just focuses me. So
Yes.
it's being very intentional always
Mm-hmm.
about where you're putting your time. And where you
Mm-hmm.
spend your time is telling yourself and everyone around you what your priorities are. And so if I want to make me a priority, I may take a few extra hours. There may be some days or weeks at a time where it's work and family and there's no Jessica time in there. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay because I've made a conscious decision to deprioritize my own time for
Mm-hmm.
time with my kids. And there's
Mm-hmm.
also a level of I will deprioritize sleep to prioritize something I want to do. And so,
Mm-hmm.
even down to where we set waking or sleeping
Mm-hmm.
is we're going to prioritize that. Some days I
Mm-hmm.
need sleep, most days I don't, which is wonderful. So I can deprioritize that really easily just in how my body is wired. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but again, it's just a constant reprioritization of everything. A really
Mm-hmm.
good example for people to understand is if we were in the middle of this meeting and my husband busts in here and said somebody need to go to the hospital, that would be a priority over us doing this. As great as this
Absolutely.
is, your priorities, whoop, it
Mm-hmm.
automatically pops to the top. And so we do that in little micro segments throughout the day,
Mm-hmm.
every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure you yourself are one of those line items that is being prioritized or reprioritized.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. I have to live and breathe by a calendar all day long. I know
Yeah.
for me, I'm transitioning into more of a consultant for myself, and it's
Yeah.
new. It's versus having an 8 to 5 traditional job. It's something different. I'm doing volunteer work. I'm launching a podcast, and it's a completely different schedule. And if I don't live, it's new, and having a different way of thinking, but you have to prioritize and you have to have your me time and working that. And I think that's so important. And if you don't have that, then you can't be effective and you can't do that. As we're starting to kind of end this podcast, I could talk to you for hours upon hours. Just I admire you so much. I want to give you a few moments to close this out, Jess, on any closing statements that you want to share with our audience.
Sure. Leadership, we'll start with leadership is a choice. You
Mm-hmm.
can choose to be a leader. It's not something that you need to wait in terms of a title or a designation someone gives to you. If that's what you want to be, go be it. But it takes work. It takes hard work and it takes intentionality. Um, The only limit you really have in what you want to do is kind of the box that you put yourself into. Again, we like to think that everybody else is consumed about us, right? As people, we always are thinking that other people, my mother, when I was very young, used to say, Jessica, the world does not revolve around you in everything. That was
Mm-hmm.
like that was her line. That was the phrase of my childhood. Um, and so just remember that nobody is thinking about what box you need to be into. You
Mm-hmm.
are thinking about it. And so kind of open up your mind to opportunities and potential. Lori, you've done a great job of this, right? Like pivoting from the 9 to 5 or the 8 to 4 and into I want to affect people, and I want to communicate and get out to the masses via podcasts, and I want to be a consultant, and I want to have control. And if somebody else would have said that to you 5 years ago, you could have been like, well, great idea, but that's not me. Because you would have still had yourself in this box, and you have opened that up and moved forward into what you want to do versus what you have to do, because we don't have to do anything. As a side step to that, I would say take an evaluation of where you are in life from a career perspective, from a where you live perspective, from a what you spend your time on and your priorities every 6 months. Reevaluate. If you're not happy, you are the only one that has the power to change it. That's it. Reevaluate.
Yes.
Goals for yourself, especially at the beginning of the year. This is a great time to do it, because then we can clock progress on a calendar. But don't limit yourself. Be open to open up your own thinking, I guess, is the best way there. Yeah.
Jess, you are so wise. So, so wise. Thank you for just being your true self. You know, you've shown us so much of your authentic self. And I really think you really are living in that authentic realness. And I think you showcasing that early on and you really learning that of it didn't feel right for you and you leaning into what feels right, you already knowing whatever you do, you're going to put your all in. So you're going to be successful. Money's always going to flow because you already know you step up. You don't hide. You share your knowledge with the people that are around you. You stand up with people. You fight for what's right. So you already know, like, you're going to grow. You're going to be the reevaluation, the checkpoints, what's real, the priorities, like your natural inquisitive nature. That's what's real. And I think now it's when COVID happened and you're like, I could be what I can be real. And thank you for sharing your rawness with us and those stories and keeping it. And I think leaders really need to emulate a lot of the things that you're doing and drop those egos and be more just authentic. So thank you for sharing your story and those nuggets. And, you know, for our listeners that are doing it, this is what it's all about. Thank you all for being here and spending time with us. If something from today stayed with you, let it. That's where growth really lives. This is Storytime with Lori. Real life, real laughs, real lessons. Until next time, keep becoming.